Doing? So good to see everybody. Welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I'm here with Miss Black Hollywood, Tiara KJ Williams. How you doing, Tiara?
I'm good. I like that introduction. You kind of sound like a rapper a little bit.
I know. I'll be trying to flow. But sometimes I rhyme slow, sometimes I rhyme quick.
Hey,
Anyway, shout out to is it Pete Rock and CL Smooth that did that song? No, they did when I reminisce over you. That's right. I got to get it right because Pete Rock is a friend of mine on Instagram. He'll get mad at me if I get the songs wrong. But anyway, so what's up, everybody? How you doing? Today we have an interesting topic. It's a sensitive topic, but I thought it was a topic worth exploring. This is actually Tiara's idea, and I thought it was important, and it has to do with this brother named DC Young Fly, and DC Young Fly had a partner by the name of Miss Jackie O. Miss Jackie O is a very talented woman who recently, unfortunately, passed in an incident that some believe was related to a mommy makeover, and so anyway, give me a yes in the chat if you know who DC Young Fly is. Give me a yes in the chat if you know who Miss Jackie O is. There they are, very nice looking couple, very beautiful woman. She looks like I think she was a model. Didn't you say she was a model or something like that?
yeah.
And funny too, right? Like if she was on Wild and Out, she had to be funny, right, Tiara?
Well, she was one of the Wild and Out girls, and then but you got to see her personality through her Instagram and TikTok and all of that.
Yeah. So anyway, so Miss Jackie O just died, and she died young. She died at 32 years old, way too young to even be thinking about death. You know, that's very unfortunate. And right before she passed, there had been a post that was taken down about her going to get a mommy makeover. Now, for those of you that don't know what a mommy makeover is, I had to look it up. I kind of guessed what a mommy makeover was, and in my mind, honestly, because my brain goes 100 miles an hour on certain stuff, it's a very loaded term, and I'm going to explain to you why it is. But the mommy makeover, according to Google, it says a mommy makeover can include any combination of the following: a tummy tuck, breast augmentation, breast lift, liposuction, or vaginal rejuvenation surgery. So I guess tightening up the screws in the mommy port. Okay, tummy tuck, flat stomach, breast augmentation. We know what that is. Breast lift, lifting them up, liposuction. Now they don't mention the BBL though, but would the BBL be considered like part of the mommy makeover sometimes
No,
too, or is that separate?
well, yeah, I think it's separate, but women definitely do all of the things. Like, they've definitely thrown that in the package.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, it sounds to me, at least a lot of people are kind of walking away with this conclusion. Maybe it's wrong. If it's wrong, I apologize for getting it wrong. But it seems to me that there's the belief that she passed away largely likely due to this procedure. Like is that a fair speculation, or are we just wilding out by saying that? No, pun intended. Pun intended.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, the dots point to. I don't know if they would have found her unresponsive in a Miami hotel after something happened. Something happened.
Right. Okay. And so let's. I think it's okay to run with that assumption. And if it turns out to be wrong, then forgive me. I think this is part of the reason why if you don't want people to use the information they have, then you provide more information. And so in a way, it reminds me a little bit of the Jamie Foxx thing, right? You had his daughter saying, "Oh, he's fine. He's out playing pickleball." But I didn't see any pictures or video of Jamie playing pickleball. I mean, has anybody seen any pictures of Jamie playing?
We still haven't seen Jamie Foxx.
Any pictures of him like brushing his teeth, walking to the park?
We still haven't
Like
seen Jamie
shooting
Foxx.
hoops in the backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I know that that Jamie's daughter was disappointed that people were speculating on what could be going on with him, but if you want to end speculation, you just provide accurate information. Like, so for example, I've been the subject of rampant internet speculation before. There was when I married my wife, Willie D is, that's my homeboy. He was in my wedding, and I don't know if you saw that, Tiara, but some guy, some idiot in the manosphere ran with some stupid rumor. Some guy I never met ran with a rumor that my wife really wanted Willie D, right? So me, Willie, and my wife laughed about it, but it was like, okay, well, so when it comes up, we would just joke about it. And my wife she's like, yeah, my secret plot was really to work through you to get to Willie. And but really it was like we just addressed it. And it's like, no, that's not true, and you're stupid because you don't even know either one of us. But either way, though, I think that the best way to deal with any inaccurate assumption is to provide facts,
That's
right?
correct.
So
That's
so
correct.
with that said, what are your thoughts? Like, when you saw what happened to this poor young woman, what went through your head?
Well, this I've been bugging you about talking about this particular subject because I live in Hollywood, right? And so there are women. I'm not going to say it started here, but I feel like it became a thing in Hollywood first, and then kind of worked its way across the country, right? Where you would see women with boobs and lips, and you just started to see a trend of women getting a little bit of work done, and now it's just become like a commonplace. But I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who had, I know you didn't ask me this, but this is what prompted it. But a friend of mine, a really close friend of mine, she had silicone put in her butt about 15 years ago.
Hmm.
And her fear now that she has to take it out is that, it's like breaking off into her butt and into her back, and she's starting to have back issues and all of that. But before it became a thing, she had gotten this put in her butt. Um, and now she's scared because she has to get these things taken out. So like literally we were talking and she was crying, about it. And it kind of made me think about, like, in 15 years, I wonder if a lot of the women getting work done, there'll be this epidemic kind of like women who are having to feel the effects. So I just kind of wanted to talk about it, really looking forward, like in 15 years, the BBLs, the breast lifts, all of the things that we're getting, not we, but all of the things that are being placed in the body that are foreign, will we have to really deal with those repercussions? So the journalist in me wanted to
Yeah,
just talk about that. But when
yeah,
Jackie died, it kind of like was like, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm talking about.
right. And I think this is important to talk about. One of the things that the Black community does, and we got to stop doing this, or we're just we're going to stay stuck on stupid. We're going to stay behind the eight ball in terms of understanding life and learning lessons. Is whenever somebody dies, even if they die from something that was preventable, we never talk about it. We
Yeah.
always think it's taboo, like, oh, well, let them rest in peace, leave them alone, leave that man alone. Why are you specking?
Yeah.
Like, people don't want to talk about it. Like,
Yeah.
Whitney Houston died. Like, we watched Whitney Houston decline from
Yeah.
back when Whitney said crack was whack and where's the receipts to Barbara
Yep.
Walters. We
Yep.
knew Whitney was on her way out. We knew Whitney was going down.
Yep.
We watched Whitney die, sat there. We were accomplices. We cheered her on as she was walking to her death. And then she died, and everybody's like, R.I.P. You with the angels now. We love you. And I get all that, right? We do love her, but if you really love somebody, you're gonna help them. And if you really love your community, you're gonna try to learn from things that happen. It drives me crazy when a celebrity dies from something that could have been prevented, and everybody's like, well, it's their business. And that's a private. Don't be talking about that. All they can do is say, RIP and prayers up. Well, stop praying and start doing something. Start learning.
Yeah.
Learn from these incidents, right? So because the data's out there. The facts are clear. I mean, we have so many women getting these procedures now, and I'm not dissing it. I think there's a lot to discuss about that in terms of being empathetic to whatever's happening emotionally that
Yes.
makes you feel like, because we talk about social media, talk
Yes.
about the pressure of Hollywood,
Yes.
where people tell you got to have these perfect bodies. I mean, think about it. Jackie O was, in an industry where they celebrate women that have these perfect bodies,
Yes.
or you have to be sexualized as a woman. You can't just be a regular woman with a regular body and have a great career. A lot of times, you have to, you got to go and have everything look in a certain way. And then when you're making music, you got to go rap about your body parts and all, the WAP and all that. And I
Yes.
think that's so unfair. And I think that puts so much pressure on women. I think it's important to talk about that. What do you think, Tiara?
I agree with you. I'm like, yes, yes. Because before Dr. West Kanye's mother passed away, I was able to meet her at a function, and I could tell like she loved Kanye, and she just was this extraordinary like human being. So when it just being in that space with her, and then like maybe a year later, her passing away, Kanye was the first person I thought of, but I also thought we could learn from Dr. West, right? Who had come from Chicago, come to LA, been around, Hollywood, and saw kind of the way it goes, right? And felt the pressure. Um, I think he says something on the Watch the Throne album. He says she couldn't take the pressure. Now we all pray. Like it was
Mhm.
so. It's like you really there is a pressure to be perfect, and I think she was looking around at the women here in Hollywood and was like, "Man, I gotta tuck my tummy. I gotta do whatever I gotta do," even though the doctor said, Dr. West, you are sick. You cannot have this. There was still some
Mm.
pressure, that feeling that you're talking about that just still made her say, regardless, I'm gonna do it anyway. And she found somebody to do it to her demise. So
Wow, I didn't know that. So the doctor had actually warned her, like, this
yes.
is not.
She went to the first doctor, and the doctor said, I will not do it. Dr. West, you are not well enough for us to do this procedure. And she found somebody who said yes.
Mm. Well, and that's funny because now that I think about it, when I was that time that I spent talking to Kanye, I felt like he was a person that was used to everyone saying yes to him. And he said some things to me. He was kind of giving me these orders to do certain things.
Hmm.
And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm
Yeah.
not, like, I'm, I don't know who you think I am, but I don't work for you, man. I don't need your money. I don't care about celebrities. I don't bow to that crap. But the thing is, you get spoiled, right? When you're famous, you just kind of get used to everybody enabling your behavior. And you see, unfortunately, I think that's affected Kanye. I think Kanye's kind of done some things that have been very harmful to him. I don't want to speak too ill because
Yeah.
our conversation, I don't want to be mean because I
Yeah.
know him personally, but
Yeah.
but at the same time, I said, I think you need somebody in your life that's going to tell you no. You need somebody in your life that you trust enough that's going to shut you down and shut you up and shut you down periodically before you start going out here just acting a damn fool. And I think the same thing is true with R. Kelly. I think R. Kelly was another person that was enabled by all the yes people around him, all these little accomplices, everybody from the people that looked the other way when he was doing only God knows what, to the parents that were delivering their daughters to him, to the other people in the industry that didn't get him the help that he needed, even though they knew he had an issue. And now look where he's at. And I think that overall, and not to say Dr. West was a victim of that at all. I'm not saying anything about. I'm not ever going to speak ill on
Yeah.
Donda because Donda, I love Donda. And I told Kanye himself, I said, you married a Kardashian. I said, to be honest with you, I never would have married a Kardashian because what you're going through is exactly what Kardashians, I feel like Kardashians will do to you.
Yeah.
I married a Donda. My
Yeah.
wife, just like Donda, is a college professor, a
Yes.
black woman from the south side of Chicago. I said, I married a Donda because the Dondas have been the ones holding us down since slavery. The Kardashians are the ones who only come around when we get money and fame. I don't know if anybody else understands where I'm coming from, but that's how I feel. So my point is to say that, again, without even pointing it toward Donda, but just to say that sometimes you get to this point where you just feel like everybody has to say yes to you. And so when somebody says no to you and it's for your own good, you just keep going. You'll find somebody that'll eventually give you what you want.
Yeah.
So anyway, so with that said though,
Yeah.
if you're talking about these surgeries, these mommy makeovers and all that, I'm gonna read something to you really quick.
Mhm.
I looked up some of the health effects of the mommy makeover and the health risks, and I think this is important so that people understand this. In case you're thinking about doing this, just know that there are tremendous risks. I saw a video from a guy on TMZ, a doctor, who said this is not just the BBL in particular. He's talking about the BBL. He said it's not just the riskiest cosmetic surgery. He said it's the riskiest surgery, period, because
Yeah.
he said that there are these little veins in your butt that go straight to your heart. And what they do when they give you the BBL is they take fat out of, like, say, your stomach,
Yeah.
and they put it into your butt. And now I'd love to have fat taken out of my stomach. I don't want it in my butt though. That would be kind of weird. But so you take the fat, put it in the garbage can, but they inject it in your butt. And he said if any little bit of fat, pay attention, if any little bit of fat gets in one of those veins, he said you're dead.
It's a wrap.
And so anyway, I'm gonna read some of these health risks to you, and then I want to get your thoughts on what I just said here. So here are some health risks of these mommy makeover surgeries, breast augmentations, tummy tucks, liposuction, etc. One, infection. They said any surgical procedure carries the risk of infection. Bleeding. It's normal to experience some bleeding after surgery, but excessive bleeding can occur in rare cases. Scarring, that's an inherent part of any surgical procedure. Anesthesia risk. General anesthesia, which is often used during mommy makeover surgeries, carries certain risks. These risks can include adverse effects to the anesthesia, respiratory problems, or allergic reactions. However, serious complications are rare, and an anesthesiologist will carefully monitor you throughout the procedure. Blood clots. Prolonged immobility during and after surgery can increase the risk of blood clots forming in the legs, known as deep vein thrombosis, DVT. These clots can potentially travel to the lungs and cause a life-threatening condition called permanent pulmonary embolism. Your surgeon will take precautions, blah, blah, blah. Poor wound healing. Some individuals may experience delayed healing of the wounds or complications. Changes in nipple sensation. Women who undergo breast procedures as part of a mommy makeover may experience temporary or permanent changes in nipple sensation. Can range from increased sensitivity to numbness. So these are some of the risks that they mentioned here. So when you hear all this, Tiara, how does that make you feel about the procedures? And I don't know, does the benefit outweigh the risks, or what are your thoughts?
Man, I definitely think it's not worth it for sure. Like, if God made you ugly, just be ugly. It's cool. Like, you ugly, it's cool. It's cool. We gonna love you regardless. But I think sometimes you just get so obsessed about a thing, especially if you're like looking at social media or you're looking at your gut. Like, especially here in this town, I hear a lot of women like, "Oh, girl, this." I hear a lot of moms like, "Oh, my fupa won't go away," or like, "Oh, I just want to get it. I just want my body back," or whatever. And then it becomes an obsession. Like, I have a friend who cannot, for whatever reason, lose her little fupa, and she's been talking about it for like a couple years. Like, "Girl, I'm just about to get a surgery." I was like, "Sis, don't do it." Like, I'm that friend that's like, "Nah, I'm not going to stand by and let you get surgery." But because it's not worth it. You don't know what's on the other side of that. For you just feel like, "Oh, I want to look good in my clothes," but is death really like the better option?
Mm.
Or any of the things that you listed, like, "Oh, I can't feel my nipples. Oh, I might die." Like, all of that to me says death. Like, that's what it says.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, everybody, if you just came in, you're watching drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. I'm here with Tiara KJ Williams, aka Miss Black Hollywood. There's her Instagram. It's at Miss Black Hollywood. Is that correct? Where people
Yes.
can follow you on Instagram? Okay. So
Yeah.
everybody go follow Tiara on Instagram. She's super smart, and she's a very talented writer and actress and filmmaker and everything in between. And also, my name is Boyce Watkins. And just to remind everybody, I'm going to be speaking in Illinois out by O'Hare Airport at a Juneteenth event next week. I want to say next Thursday. And so if you want to join us there, just go to boycewatkins.com. I'll also be speaking in Seattle on July 8th. So you can find out about both events at boycewatkins.com. Hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. This podcast is on Spotify. Just look up my name on Spotify. You'll find it there. All right. So one thing that's interesting that I thought about, we were talking about DC Young Fly and his partner, Jackie O, and how she passed away from what seems to be possibly related to, one of the procedures, right? And so she's a really pretty lady,
So pretty.
and they had kids together, and you and I were talking separately. There she is with her beautiful children, and you and I were talking about how DC Young Fly was on tour at the time, apparently, and he's kind of getting a lot more recognition. From what it sounded like, what you said, she might at one point have been more well known than him, because she was on Wild 'N Out with 5 years ago, and she's now spending a lot of her time on mommy duty. Right, she's taking care of her kids while he's living the life of a
Absolutely.
celebrity, and she's doing her thing on Instagram and TikTok and all that. What do you think might be going through the mind of a mom, unmarried mom, just so everybody knows the context, an unmarried mom who has three kids with a celebrity,
Yes.
where she had dreams too. He's
Yes.
out living his dreams, and your day kind of starts with baby bottles and dirty diapers, and everything else, while he's kind of on the road, and there are women on the road, and there's just and then all the dreams are out there on the road. I mean, how do you think a mom might, not to say we can speculate on how she felt, but how would you feel kind of in that situation?
Well, I do know it's so funny that you say, because I just know a lot I just have been in a lot of places where I remember being with a really famous comedian's ex-wife, and she was talking about it. We all know this famous comedian, but he was out on the road, and she was talking about like in the early days when he was out just trying to make it and trying to get, and she was like, I would be, in the house by myself, and the kids wouldn't stop crying, and then I would be like locking myself in the bathroom and drinking, and like the stress level, and like it, just to listen to her talk about how miserable she was. And I was like, well, maybe our kids can have a play date. Like I didn't know where to go with that. Like I was just like, we did a radio show together, and I was just like, wow, like this is a really broken woman. Obviously, she's not broken anymore, but just like where she was in her head, like she had, it was just dark. So to me, every time I think of a woman that is dating someone that may be a celebrity, it kind of reminds me of that woman, and it kind of reminds me of you know her wanting to be her dealing with all the insecurities of being like, he's out on the road, there's women on the road, there's opportunity to do all these things on the road, sexually with women. There's just opportunity to do things. And I think sometimes if you're not in a relationship with with that woman, or you are and you're doing your thing, it can make the woman insecure, and that insecurity can probably drive them to do things like a mommy makeover. I want him to see me, I want him to still think I'm
Mhm.
sexy, I want to look like some of the women out here that he's picking over me while I'm sitting at home raising our children. You know what I mean? So I just think it's a mind fuck, really. Like it can be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So and I see people in the chat are kind of mentioning that. Um, I saw one person, Ruth, says that it's terrible that he never married her, and I'm not going to speculate, right?
Mhm.
It's because relationships and marriage are complicated, but when you say that word insecurity,
Mhm.
inherent in the term insecurity is the fact that insecurity represents a lack of security,
Yeah.
right? Which means someone did not do what they could have done to help you feel more secure about the situation. Now,
Mhm.
theoretically, you could just give yourself a false sense of security, right? Like, he's my man, he ain't going nowhere, whatever. But one of the reasons for marriage is to provide security,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's what marriage does. Marriage provides financial security, some degree of emotional security. It doesn't mean someone can't leave you. We know that's not true because people leave each other all the time. But
Okay.
what it does mean is that there's an extra hurdle to them leaving you, right?
Yes.
You're like, okay, I've invested in this man. I've had 3 kids, 3 of his children.
Mhm.
That's a lot of, for as a man, that's a lot of security you have right there as a man.
Yeah.
Usually if you treat a woman half decent, she got 3 of your kids, a lot of women are going to be naturally connected to you as long as you're doing everything right for the most part. Even
Right.
though, even though women are changing, right? Things can evolve. And there are plenty of men I hear from who are very upset that their children were taken away from them. I think that's a conversation that should always be had too, about the
Mhm.
pain that men feel when they are put out of the house and away from their own children. And I know people feel justified, like, oh, he shouldn't have cheated if he wanted to be with his kids. I don't agree with that. I think that being a good husband for you is very different from him being a good father. And his
Mhm.
children don't care about who y'all was having sex with. The kids are just like, I want to see my daddy. And I
Yeah.
think moms need to hear that, and they don't hear that, and that burns me up. However, flipping to the other side of that and trying to remain balanced in this conversation,
Right.
I would encourage everybody to understand, when somebody tells you marriage is just a piece of paper, maybe it is just a piece of paper, but it's a very important piece of paper.
That's right.
It's a very important piece of paper, because what that would at least say is, okay, you might be on the road, you might, leave me one day, but it's going to cost you a few million to do that, right?
Right.
It's going, so that's going to make you think twice before you do certain things, and so I would almost understand people that are saying, wait a minute, I'm at home taking care of your kids, we should have a different kind of relationship. But
Yeah.
then again, though, at the same time, you can also make the assessment that she chose her life. She chose to be with him. And
Yeah.
and that's an interesting thing. I want to get your thoughts on this. I'm gonna tell you, the more I think about it, the more I think about all the grief that women talk about in terms of dating, like celebrities and athletes and all that. I'm like, why would you do that? Like, why? I mean, really, like, why would you? What fantasy did somebody feed you to tell you that athletes and entertainers, are not most likely to get out here and do stuff? I mean, sure, a poor man can cheat on you, a broke man can cheat on you, but
Yeah.
but a broke man ain't got the options of a celebrity who's meeting women in every single city. It ain't the same. It
Yeah.
ain't the same. So I almost wonder. Like, I'm gonna tell you, I hope Alicia doesn't mind me mentioning this, but when Alicia and I were young, I've known my wife for 30 years. We were friends for a long time, and I was, I guess I was in the friend zone, but it wasn't like she friend zoned me. I was just her friend. That's it. There's nothing wrong with being friends with a woman.
Right.
And I remember her being hit on by a lot of athletes. I'm talking about 6'9" NBA stars with $10 million in the bank, driving, with two Porsches and a Mercedes. And I would be like, well, why don't you date him? He's good
Mm-mm.
looking. He's on TV. He's got money. And she'd be like, I'm not messing with those athletes. I don't
Mm.
want nothing to do with it. What's wrong with that? Or maybe she's just. I mean, what do you think? Why aren't women really talking about that kind of thing?
Yeah, I just think there's a headache attached to it. I would never want just being around celebrities and being around handsome celebrities, right? The handsome men. I was like, I just don't understand how his wife is not like standing here wanting to stab everybody. Like it just there's a layer, real thing. Like okay. So, because I got stories, but I'm just saying, like, I remember being in Essence Fest with a celebrity man, and this man is considered fine by a lot of women, and there was women everywhere, like everywhere. And he leaves the house, and his wife be like, "See you later." Like it's like I don't know how she does it. It's not something I could do. And I don't know if that person has ever cheated on his wife or not, but like out of all the years that he's been a celebrity, but I would not want to deal with that. Like I would not. Obviously, there's celebrities floating around everywhere, and I don't know. I never had an interest in wanting that because of the ego that comes along with it. He's a yes. He hears yes all the time. There's all of these things. He feels like he can be he can treat you like shit basically, and just be like, there's one of me, there's 10 of you, like that kind of thing. I
Mhm.
just never wanted to get caught up in a situation like that, but it just seems stressful.
Mhm. Yeah, well, you know what? I can tell you as a person, I'm not famous like that. I mean, but I'm famous enough that I can legitimately say that most cities I go to, people recognize me on the street, and that comes with a certain degree of
Absolutely.
attention, right? And you've been my
Absolutely.
friend a long time, so you've seen some of it. And what I've noticed is that there's at least a couple of types of women that might approach you. There are the women
Mm,
who approach you, assume with kind of a fairy tale expectation that they're going to be able to own and control everything about you. That somehow this man who is your favorite rapper, let's say, I'm gonna take myself out of the equation because I'm a married man now, and I see the world differently. But they're looking at this person. Like I really remember talking to a woman who really thought that if she married Lil Wayne, he would be faithful to her, even though he's never been faithful to anyone. He had three women pregnant at the same time. She still somebody fed some sort of fantasy to her that he was going to put all that to the side and just focus on her. That is to me that comes off like a mental illness to me, honestly, or something where maybe your daddy should have talked to you, or you need a reality check, or maybe life will just slap you in the face a couple times, and then you'll wake up and realize that that's not what's typically going to occur. So that's one type of woman, the woman that thinks that you can take a celebrity man and typically put him under the construct of a traditional family scenario with all the monogamy and everything else. That's one type. But then the other category of woman is the woman who just wants a piece of you. She just wants to know that you're there for her and that she can get what you want to. And let me give you an example.
so it's all Nick Cannon's baby mamas.
All Nick Cannon's baby's mamas, right? They're like, he's sending me $1 million a year. I'm living better than most surgeons are.
Okay.
And I can still, they still gonna do what they want to do, but Nick don't care. I bet. I don't know. Maybe Nick does. Maybe he's like, look, as long as I'm not around, whatever happens when I'm not there, that's fine. But when I'm there, whoever's in your bed gonna have to move out the bed, because the king is home, right? That's probably the mindset that he has, right? And so I would just say that I've seen that. I've seen women who are like, I want to get whatever piece of you that I can. Ti's wife Tiny does that. Think about this. Ti, let's just be honest. Ti's wife, when people see Tiny, people are confused. They're just confused. They're like, that doesn't look like the kind of woman he would pick, But she actually talked about her philosophy. She calls it the piece of man philosophy. She says it's better to have a piece of a good man than to have no man at all. Now, maybe for some people though, they'd rather have no man at all, right? So I'm not here to.
But is that situation a little different? Because when Ti met Tiny, Tiny was an escape, and she was like a whole celebrity. And so she was famous, and she was fine. Like, she was fine. But because of the reason
fine, like as in pretty, or fine as in like doing okay. Like, what do you mean fine?
She was a cute. Back in the day, Tiny was a cute girl, but because of the reason why we're having this conversation in general, she made some changes because there was some insecurities. There was some, the man that she had been holding down all these years had gotten really, really famous. And so I think that she was like wanting to look like some of the women he was dating, but it just didn't go that way.
Well, you know what? One thing that I think everybody knows about Ti and Tiny is, I met them once, and we know that they don't have a traditional marriage.
Right.
They've already kind of mentioned that, and so I would say that is what has allowed them to remain together, because and for good or for right or wrong, good or bad, some people will say that that's toxic, right? That's a toxic marriage, and the kids are being harmed by it. But then some people would say, that's realistic. He's Ti. He raps about all the women he sleeps with. He's, no telling what he does when he's doing his thing. No, whatever. Maybe she's doing her thing too. And they're together as a family. Their kids can say, my mother and father stayed married my whole entire life. Most kids can't say that. Most kids can't say my parents got married and stayed married, right? And I'm gonna just tell you like this. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if my father. I remember how women used to look at my dad. I remember how they looked at him. I remember how they used to flirt with him. I would see it because I was a smart kid. I could observe things, and I wouldn't be surprised if, he slipped a little bit. I don't know if he did or not, but I'm gonna tell you the truth. It doesn't matter to me. Some people think infidelity harms the kids and everything else. I think it only harms the kids if you talk about it in front of the kids. If they see their mother crying and their mother's constantly complaining about their father, then yeah, it's going to hurt the kids. They're going to hate their father too, which means you're ultimately still harming your child though, because that's not a child's place to even know anything about your adult relationship. A child should be protected. Like if I'm mad at my wife, I'm never going to go around her children and start saying crappy things about her, no matter how bad she hurt my feelings. If they bring up mama, I'm be like, you do what your mama says, and so I would say to all women, if you're ever tempted to speak ill about your child's father, even in a subtle way, that's child abuse. You're taking something away from that child. I mean, I knew a girl like that whose mother alienated the father, talked bad about him, didn't respect him, and this girl was suicidal by the time she was 18, 19 years old, and didn't really know why. And I was thinking it's because you don't have a father that's there to give you love and support, because your mother pushed him away, because your mother wanted you to be solely dependent on her emotionally. And your father's nowhere in the equation, and you're missing something, but you don't even know what you're missing. A father matters, and I think it's weird that people think it doesn't matter. But we never question whether the mother matters. We know that kids without a mother, they suffer. So I just kind of think I think generally I would argue that whatever situation you go into, you have to be realistic about it, and it's funny because sometimes when I talk about stuff like this, people don't understand it. They think, that I'm just a financial guy, and I'm like, well, the biggest financial investment biggest financial move you'll ever make is who you choose to marry and who you choose to be with. Like you can't go and splatter babies mamas all across the country and think you're not going to be broke because of that, unless you're Nick Cannon, right? And he has to make $100 million a year just to keep up. If his income ever drops substantially, mark my words, Nick will be in court with financial problems. So anyway, Tiara, I've said a lot. What are your thoughts on what I just said?
Well, you said a mouthful, Boyce. I don't know if I don't have a rebuttal to that. That's great. I mean, you're absolutely right. You would actually have to ask me a question because I think that's all good stuff.
Well,
Um,
okay. So speaking on that whole issue with DC Young Fly's partner, Jackie O,
mhm,
what if you're like you've got like a child that wants to go to Hollywood, and you see all the trade offs, right? Especially for Black people. I think Hollywood just seems like a terrible place for Black people. I mean, maybe if you're like gay or Jewish, then I guess it works. But if you're like Black, it just seems like you get pushed to jump through all these hoops. The
yeah,
rewards are minimal. Even a lot of it seems like even our biggest Black stars find themselves struggling, at certain
yeah,
times, trying to just maintain and hold on.
yeah.
I wouldn't even want to send my daughter to Hollywood. I mean, and
Mm.
then you talk about, and then you throw in the body issues on top of that, where you've got to sort of meet the standard of perfection that isn't even real. Oh, and then social media makes it even worse. Should I just tell my daughter not to go to Hollywood?
Yeah. As a person that lives in Hollywood, I would say there's a lot of great experience. The last 20 years of my life have been really interesting. I mean, I've been able to be in some of the best rooms and work with some of the greatest people and just do all of these really cool things that if I had stayed in New Orleans, I wouldn't have been able to do. So for
Mhm.
me, the trade-off is it was worth it. It was worth me coming. It was worth me pursuing it. I'm still in pursuit. I'm still doing all of these things, but I would say that just make sure that your daughter knows who she is before she gets to this town. Because
Mm.
if you don't know who you are, you can be at somebody's party, and they be like, hey, there's some debauchery in the back and coke on the table. Have at it. And really, like, I'm 22 years old. We're at Brett Ratner's house or whoever's house, and it's like, go back there and do it. I'm like, nah, this ain't for me. I'm gonna leave
Mm.
now. Like, it's that. It is. And you can make the decision for yourself. You can make the choice for yourself. It's crazy because here where I am, like, you know, I don't know, 12 years ago, 12 years later, and it's like all the people that came out and the whole Me Too thing. I was like, I can see that. I remember being at their house, and that, in those moments, you could have been totally in that, but there was something in me that was like, this is not my scene. Oh no, I
Mm.
don't do cocaine. No, I don't do heroin. Thanks though. I drink water. I'm gonna go. Like, it just wasn't that serious. I didn't want to come here and lose who I was. And truth be told, Boyce, I feel like when it comes to, because family is funny, they'll be like, I mean, but yeah, I mean, when you make it, I'm like, kind of feel like I made it already. I don't have to be uber famous. Everybody doesn't need to know who I am in order for me to feel like I've had success in this town. Now, I mean, I'm still in the middle of my journey, but I say that to say that, like, there could have been things that I could have done that could have taken me on up to the top, but I just chose to
Mm.
do something different because I know who I am. So I would just say, just know who you are and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's a really, really good advice because a lot of people, focus on the outside. Like they focus on the result and they don't think about, well, how did you actually get there? It reminds me of like I went I went to a Chicago Bears game and I came out and there's a big statue of Walter Payton outside of the Bears stadium, and it's an
Mm,
awesome looking statue. And this man had all this glory because he was such a great running back, but then he died very, very young
mm,
as a result of his sacrifices. No telling what he did to his body or had to do in order to be Walter Payton.
yeah.
And so when you grow up fantasizing about some sort of outcome and you don't calibrate that fantasy with the realities of the trade-offs that you have to make to reach that outcome, um, I don't know if you're going to be happy with the result, right? Like it's you know what I mean? It's
Who
kind
will
of
you be at the end of it? Who will you be? Can you stand in the mirror and say, and I'm just because we're talking about plastic surgery. I remember walking into an agent's office and him saying, you're cute. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking maybe a breast, like a boob job. I was like, well, I like my boobs, like I like these. Like these A cups is gonna get me places, these B cups is going places. But that was one of the first things he said. If you're gonna be on TV, gotta get your titties done. Gotta do this, gotta do that. You gotta already. And I was like, maybe 27. So, like 26, I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, you get that pressure when you get on a different level and you have to make a decision and say, like, this isn't for me. But if you're not secure in who you are and you want, because people want to be famous, and people want to make that sacrifice, and then they make the sacrifices and then they look up and they're kind of weird. They're kind of weird. It's like the people that, to me, that you look at and they're kind of like, it's like, what did you give up? What did you sacrifice? And I don't mean like, oh, because people online are like, the Illuminati sacrificed Jackie. Like, I'm not talking about that. Like, that's we're not talking about that type of sacrifice. But I'm talking about personal sacrifice. I'm talking about integrity. I'm talking about character. I'm talking about, who are you when you get out here and you just start saying yes to everything? Yeah, I'll get a boob job. Oh, I can. Okay, so if I get this boob job, I can be on TV. Like, it just didn't seem like it was for me.
Yeah, well, I tell my daughter, I said, who's the most powerful person in Hollywood? And she starts naming all these actors and actresses. I said, no, the most powerful people in Hollywood are people that you don't even see,
That's
because
correct.
they control the finances.
That's
And
right.
so I told her, I said, get with your friends, learn how to start businesses, learn how to build wealth, and then invest and create your own platforms. I said Tyler Perry will never have to ask for permission to star in a Tyler Perry movie.
That's correct.
And for whatever you think about Tyler Perry, he has accomplished that goal. He gets to manifest whatever he wants to see on screen, and I think that that's quite admirable. And I think that that's a business model that um, I would encourage for young Black people, really for their own survival. Just for your own spiritual protection.
Yeah.
Because Hollywood's crazy, man. I mean, some of that stuff, Lord Jesus, those Negroes be coming back looking weird.
They
Into all kinds of stuff.
tighter, pants get tighter, they look a little, and then they start talking like a way. Like, when you start working with, it's just like, I don't know, the philosophies just, it's just like, so how have things been going? The air that I'm breathing is just different, like, the universe is giving me what the sun hasn't, it just, the conversations get really weird, and you're like, okay, okay, all right, the universe is okay. Like, it really, that's a real thing. Like, I've watched people rise, and it's just like, okay, well, what did you do to get there? Or what do you feel like has been, whatever it is. And then they'll just give me this like uber spiritual but universal, but like Scientology, something from the Scientology. Like, you don't know what is happening. So I think people just get really caught up and they stop seeing race. When people get real rich, they stop seeing race. It's just like we're just all human beings, and there's no racism, and it doesn't exist. Like, that's how you know when somebody got rich. Because they be like, I hang around white people all the time and they're great. It's like
well, I'll tell you what. I say that I think to be liberated in Black, you don't have to be anti-white, right? Like, I don't think, I think that I don't know. I don't think that that's really our biggest obstacle. I don't meet a lot of white people trying to block me from doing the things I need to do to be happy. There's no white man stopping me from reading a book. No white man stopping me from taking care of my kids. No white man stopping me from loving my wife. No white man stopping me from starting a business. And so I think as much as we can talk about the weirdness of whiteness that can happen in Hollywood, I think it's more so talking about your knowledge of self. As a Black person, like you said earlier, look, Negro, I know you think you're special now because white people gave you money to act like a damn clown, but why did they pay you that money? Sometimes they'll pay you that money because you are the weakest among us. Sometimes you get the most money because you are the one who will go along to get along with anything. Sometimes you'll get the most money because you have presented yourself as the $2 hoe, Me, I prefer, if you're gonna be a hoe, at least be a high price hoe. You know, this is
I
right.
mean,
you
I
know,
mean, I
yeah,
mean, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and I think that that's where we get it wrong. And this is where I come in with the money conversation, and I warn people that money is really powerful. Money is, it's a demon and a god within itself. It's a drug, and all money is not good money.
that's right.
So sometimes you might make so much money that it ends up killing you. And again, just look at DMX, look at some of these other celebrities that who would, if they had been taken away from all the money and the fame, they would probably still be alive.
That's
Like
right.
I think if you taken fame and money out of the life of DMX, taking it away from R. Kelly, taking it away from Whitney Houston, I think most, if not all three of them, would still be alive,
Yeah.
because there's something about being forced to come down to earth, to deal with real stuff or whatever, and not having somebody just sit next to you enabling all your bad habits just so you can get out on stage and perform. You're like a racehorse, like you're a cash cow, right? So it's like the athletes. You know how they give athletes, so they'll inject them with anything just so they can get out there and score another touchdown. And it's somebody who loves you who says, no, he's not playing no more.
Yeah.
No, this injury is too bad. He needs to get off the field. Somebody that really loves you has to be the one to, wake you up out of this dream. You think you're living the dream, right? So sometimes you need somebody that loves you enough to wake you up and say, we're no more, right? We're going to get you some help, right? But you don't have that. And it seems to me, once you get surrounded by all the people that only want to be around you because you're making money, right? Because now you're married to a Kardashian, and you got your little Jewish agent and all that. Don't disrespect anybody, any other community, but these people around you who are not invested in you in that way. You got your little Becky wife. And she wouldn't be dealing with your black ass if you were still back in the projects. She likes you because you were in her favorite movie. You
Yeah.
know, and I just don't understand why people don't get that. But maybe I'm just the delusional one here.
Well,
Um,
it makes me think. It makes me think of one of my favorites is Dave Chappelle, and just like watching him be offered all the money in the world, and at one point, $50 million, whenever the Dave Chappelle show came out, was a lot of freaking money. It's still a lot of money today, but that $50 million and him being able to walk away from it, to me, um, it's just you know that is the epitome of like knowing yourself and like what feels good in here. Some people ignore what their heart is saying, like, don't do that. But there's just certain people out here that be like, I'm not rolling with this, like this feels weird and I'm getting out of here. Like, I don't want to deal like this. And ultimately, after being shunned and vilified and called a crackhead and going to like him saying that he went to Africa to do crack or whatever, him getting the last laugh and getting that money back on Netflix, or getting that deal with Netflix a million years later, right? So sometimes, like, just holding off and just like sticking to your guns can really just be a blessing. I mean, it might take some more time, but it'll come around, if I think, if you do the right thing.
By the way, everybody, I'm speaking with Tiara KJ Williams, aka Miss Black Hollywood, and we're talking about Hollywood now. We're talking about being celebrity status and all this other stuff now. Before we started talking about DC Young Fly and what happened to his partner Jackie O, but the
Yeah.
conversation's evolved since then. If you could do me a favor, please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. Also, just a reminder, I'll be in Seattle and Illinois in the next couple of weeks speaking. If you'd like to join us at either event, just go to boycewatkins.com. Also, my new book is called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. It's an Amazon bestseller. Feel free to go take a look at that. And you can follow Tiara at Miss Black Hollywood on Instagram. That's MS Black Hollywood. I'm gonna put that on the screen so you guys can see it. And those listening on Spotify, you can just make sure it's MS Miss Black Hollywood. Everybody go follow her. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, follow us on Spotify and just look up my name, Boyce Watkins. So you were talking about Dave Chappelle, and let me just give a shout out to Dave, because I think Dave is kind of the epitome of what you were referring to, in the sense
Yeah.
that Dave is a guy who, who he got offered what seemed like a once in a lifetime opportunity,
Yeah.
right? And when he had that show, that variety show, and it was doing really well, the Chappelle Show, and they offered him that 50 million for Comedy Central. I was stunned when he walked away from that, because at that time it's like, oh my god, whoa, what's going on with him to
Yep.
cause him to walk away from that? And you're so right. One thing we forget is that things change, times change, right? And things evolve. And so what I saw with Dave was, he had enough confidence to know that another opportunity would likely come along. He knew it's almost like not only did he have the confidence to know, look, this isn't for me. I'm not putting on no dress. I'm not doing all this other stuff y'all want me to do. But also he just kind of, I bet you he just knew, like, okay, at
I
some
don't think
point,
he did. I don't think
right?
he did. I think he thought it was over. I think he says it in one of his stand-ups, like,
Hmm.
my shit was over, nigga. Like, you know how he talked. Like, I think he thought it was over. I think
Wow.
he was like, I'm gonna just keep doing these small rooms or whatever, and then it kind of came back around. His blessing came back around, but I don't think he foresaw that at all.
Well, that's a good point. So it's kind of, it kind of reminds me of like how those movies work, where in the beginning of the movie you'll have a character that wants something really really bad, and the whole movie he's like in conflict trying to attain this thing, and then toward the end of the movie he goes through some transformation where he doesn't want it anymore, and
Mhm,
that's when he gets it.
mhm.
Right? It's like almost everything else in life. When you stop wanting it is when you transform and you become kind of pure to the core purpose of really who you are, and then that thing you strive for and you were chasing just lands in your lap. And so Dave, it sounds like, gave up this dream of the 50 million and said, you know what, I don't need to be rich and famous and all that stuff. I just want to be a damn good comedian and do these small rooms and be pure to my craft. And then guess what, the $100 million deals landed in his lap.
Yep.
Because at that time there was no such thing as like all these big Netflix deals and all that stuff. Netflix was in its infancy at that time. Netflix, I think at that time, was so small that Blockbuster thought they were just going to be gone
Yeah.
in a couple of years. Like Netflix could have been bought by Blockbuster for almost nothing. You know that story.
Yeah.
And so since that time, things have just changed and evolved. And I think it's such a great lesson, and I relate to it so much because I remember when I was at Syracuse University and I would get so much flack for all my little pro black talk and all the stuff I was doing. But I felt like it was the right thing to do, and I knew I was going to get fired from Syracuse at some point. I knew that once I got fired from one university, no university is going to hire me. Nobody hires the loudmouth black guy, no matter how good the credentials are, right? That's the reality, right? So I remember thinking, man, once I get fired, once I leave this place on bad terms, no decent university is going to hire me. They just won't. They'll scream all day about, oh, we need to hire more black people, but that's all a bunch of BS. They just say that to sound good, but they really don't mean it. So I was like, what am I going to do? But you know what? Something told me, like, God just said, I got you. You're going to be all right. Just
Yeah.
operate on faith. Just be
Yeah.
pure to who you are. Just stick with keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna be all right. I got you. And I kept going. I was like, well, I don't know how I'm gonna eat, but here it goes. I would just go
Oh,
and do my thing, did it to the best of my ability. And guess what happened? I got blessed at a level that was 20 or 30 times greater than whatever I thought I was chasing back in 2006, 2007.
come
Like
on.
the stuff I used to want back then is a joke compared to the things I've actually been able to access by being committed to being myself and not being afraid anymore.
That's
You know,
good.
and that is so true. And there's so many. You're a storyteller. You've written these scripts that have been, that have been sold to these studios. So you know the art of storytelling. And there's so many stories like that, where it's like if you have this thing that you either desire or this thing that you fear, and you transform enough to confront the fear or let go of the desire and commit to being true to your purpose, good things happen in the end,
That's
right?
the that's the format for a movie, by the way. So if
Is
you
it?
just gave up the, like, as you were talking about, I was like, you just gave up the whole format. Like that's the movie. Like that's how you sit down and like really script that out, because that's what everybody wants to see. That kind of story where you just like are continuously, you sticking to your guns, you feeling the fear and doing it anyway, still being beat down by life because life be life in. And then at some point it shifts and then bad things happen. I mean, think about all of the movies where it's like, he's gonna make it. No, he doesn't. I could walk
Right, right.
formula, and because there is a formula for that. But that's exactly that's the hero story. Like that's the story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I can when I think about my own little story, it's like I see it in those two different directions, right? One is having this thing you desire and being afraid to let go of it, and then letting go of it, and then it falling in your lap because you've let go of that thing and you focus on something, like almost like relationships when they say you're trying too hard, and then you don't get what you want, but then when you stop trying, like that's when someone loves you for who you truly are, right? But then the other part of it is just confronting that fear. Like I had a fear, like a lot of us, I think Black people, I think we are the ultimate white supremacists. I think we have an intense fear of what white people will do to us if we get out of line. I think that we are afraid, right? I think in Hollywood, you see the fear. Oh, I better not say that or I'm going to get in trouble. In corporate America, we have that fear. In academia, I remember I had that fear. A lot of my fellow colleagues, very brilliant Black scholars, smartest people on the planet, but they were scared of them white folks, and I'm not going to say I was afraid, but I remember thinking, man, like, I don't have anybody backing me up. I don't have anybody cheering me on. Everybody's telling me if you keep doing this, these bad things are going to occur. And the last thing I wanted, I mean, I was in school till I was 31 years old, right? I had invested my life in getting my PhD. Fortunately, I got it.
Yeah.
And it's devastating to think that this thing that you spent a decade in school obtaining could be just dismantled because you were too racial or too whatever, too direct. And I just remember confronting the fear and kind of just saying, like, wait a minute, this white man ain't better than me. Like what you mean gonna tell me I got to get on my knees and beg you for me to be successful? No, 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 no. I have again, you go back to God, you go back to faith, whatever you need to lean on. And I really truly felt, I don't even go to church, but I knew I had a higher power that was gonna guide me through all that storm. Like I and the thing was, that to some extent it was like blind faith. It was like I was talking to my daughter about what it means to be confident, and I said sometimes people make the false assumption that to be confident you have to have something to be confident about. And I said what's really hard is to be confident just because you're confident.
Yeah.
Just to be like, we just gonna go hard. Like I don't even know how this is gonna work out. I don't have anything to base this on, but I know I'm not any of a lesser man than anybody else, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, ain't nobody perfect out here, right? We all make mistakes. I'm gonna make mistakes, and I love myself despite my mistakes. So that self love, that's what drove me to have like what I felt was like seemingly infinite confidence. I once
Yeah.
I learned to really love myself, and I think for Black people that's what it is. I think that we don't love ourselves, but we're
Mm,
waiting for everybody else to love us. We need to be validated, and then we start loving ourselves because everybody else does, right? But
yeah.
but but if you can learn to love yourself without needing the validation, then you can just go in any situation, do whatever you want. You
Right.
know?
Yeah, you know what? One of my favorite. I just finished a book called The Confidence Gap, and it was like one of my favorite. One of my favorite quotes was, "Initially, you won't have the confidence, right? It's like you putting that action there first. Action comes first, and then the confidence comes through the action. So, like, if you would have never done it, you would have never just started. Like you said, I'm gonna go
Mm,
ham, and then like the more you do it, the more you're like,
yeah,
okay, I
that's
can do this.
true.
That's where it comes from. And before you know it, you've mastered this thing, and you're the epitome of confidence because you're not this my shit. I know this. If I don't know, but you didn't start out that way. So it's just like my favorite thing to think when people are like, I'm so scared of this. I'm so scared of this process. It's like just start to do it. Like do it,
Yes.
and then and then at some point you'll be like, oh, I'm confident. But until then, you won't be. You know?
That's so true. We it's so tempting to talk yourself out of everything, and and just guarantee your own failure by not even trying.
Yeah.
And I think everybody does it, and that's where thinking too much can be a bad thing, right? Sometimes you got to stop thinking so much and just feel it and do it.
Exactly.
And think about it afterward. If you get scared after you jumped, and that's so yeah, I think that's something to think about. Well, thanks for sharing that. I know we've been on here for almost an hour, and I
I
appreciate all your
know.
time.
Yeah.
Everybody, this is Tiara KJ Williams, aka Miss Black Hollywood.
Hey,
There is her. I'm gonna put her Instagram information on the screen so you can check it out. It's Miss Black Hollywood, MS Black Hollywood, and also my name is Boyce Watkins. My website is boycewatkins.com. On my website, you can find a lot of free tools like the $5 a day investing plan, things like that, financial flashcards for kids to get your kids ahead in the wealth games. Feel free to check that out. Also, if you want to join us in either Illinois or Seattle, those are the two cities I'm speaking in next. Just go to boycewatkins.com. And also, Miss Black Hollywood will be happy to know that I'm going to actually go back to LA, I think in July. So
July what? Let me
I
put
don't
it
know
down.
the date. I don't have the date, but I will be back in Los Angeles, and
All
so
right.
we have a group. We have an investment club out there that meets regularly. So once
Oh,
I find out the dates, I'll let everybody know, and I'd love to have you out there too. So
perfect.
all
So,
right,
hold on before we go. right? I just want, because we started this conversation and then it was about vanity and plastic surgery. And I just want to say, Black women, because I'm so scared because I see a lot of young girls doing this, right? I
Mm,
see a lot of young girls feeling, I don't know, the pressure. It's like I'm right in between that, right? Where, the generation ahead of me, the women are hit or miss. Like it's like they kind of still, they like, they might still look like mama, like they look a little older. They like, they got grandmas or, older aunties. I'm right in the middle. And then there's this generation under me that like feels the need to have lashes and wigs and
mm,
beat faces and they need to do all of these things to enhance what they look like. And I think it makes them look older. And I think it just takes away from what they naturally have that's beautiful. What I
mhm,
would hate is for them to, that generation, to allow vanity, to allow social media to to ruin their lives,
mhm,
to make them so insecure and feeling like they can't leave, they can't go to Walmart without lashes. Like it's just weird. So I just want to take it back to like plastic surgery and all of that, because I see a lot of the young girls doing it anyway. Sis, you don't need it. Please don't do it. Don't do it. Let's not
mhm,
in 15 years be like one of my friends who was literally nervous and scared that she is going to die when they take
mm,
this silicone out of her butt. She is
mm,
scared she may die on the table. And her and I were talking about Jackie, and it was just like, girl, this is why I'm scared that they're going to take my butt out. And then, like, what is my butt going to look like now that it's been in for 15 years? It's just like all of these insecurities because she doesn't know what her butt is going to do, right? So I would just say, like, I just don't want in 15 years for this generation under me to have all of these like health issues and conditions and be dying and having heart attacks for no reason, and you don't know that it's connected to a filler or silicone that you put in your body. So I just wanted to say that because that's important to me.
well, I think you have an admirer, Brandon Hodge, who says, "Great podcast, and I found a smart black beauty to follow."
Hey,
So,
Brandon.
so there we go. So we should never miss our opportunity to compliment a black woman, and also everybody should follow Tiara at Miss Black Hollywood. And I think that what you said is so true. What's so scary about everything you just said is that we don't even know the long term health effects of all this stuff that people are doing, to their
Sure.
bodies and stuff. And the studies do show that social media is driving this for a lot of young girls. They're getting on Instagram and seeing these people looking perfect every day, and it's constantly the one thing that social media does is it makes you compare yourself to other people, and also you get a lot of FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
So so you're 27 and you don't have a Lamborghini yet, so you start feeling like you're not doing enough, and next thing you know, you have like these social media influencers, these two young pretty young ladies that were on social media and doing their Instagram thing, and I think both of them are facing over 20 years in prison for transporting cocaine. And
Wow.
yeah, because it's hard to make that Instagram flex money when you in your 20s, and you ain't got no trust fund. I mean, and this is, and I tell parents all the time. I'm always telling people, like, invest for your kids so they will have enough when they
Mhm.
get in their 20s. But still, though, I didn't even expect to have that kind of money. I was broke as hell in my 20s.
Man, come on, talk about it. I was around here eating ramen, trying to get advice from yes,
Yeah,
and
yeah, that was premium food back then. So when you had enough money to go to the store and buy a whole bunch of ramen, like a whole case of ramen, you knew you were good for.
yes.
We was probably eating plastic, all kinds of
Everything. But that was
chemicals.
part of that was the best part of the journey, really. When I look back in my 20s and we were, in Hollywood, like, just networking and getting advice from people. And it's just like you could say, like it just really does something. It just did something for the journey. Like you don't want that I mean, maybe you do want it at 20, but you haven't lived. You haven't
Yeah,
experienced. You haven't fought for anything. You just
yeah, yeah. My heart goes out to them. Yeah, if you're young, work on your mental health, and you start finding yourself getting stressed out over social media. Turn that stuff off. People
yeah,
need social media detoxes, just like you need a detox from alcohol, drugs, anything else. You need that time when you walk away from it because it'll mess up your head. And
yeah,
and older people, I think people over 40, I think understand that a little bit better because we remember life before
yeah.
social media, before internet, even before the internet. I think for somebody that's born into this, it's sad. It's literally creating a mental health crisis. My wife is a therapist. She talks about this all the time. She's got teenagers in her office that are freaking out over cyberbullying and everything happening. So, and it's terrible. I mean, so protect your kids, everybody. All right, so everybody, please give a digital thank you to our special guest, Miss Tiara KJ Williams, aka Miss Black Hollywood. You can follow her at Miss Black Hollywood, MS Black Hollywood. My name is Boyce Watkins, and if you'd like to go follow me, you can go to boycewatkins.com. And also, don't forget that the All Black National Convention is going to happen in Atlanta, October 20th, and at the Marriott Marquis. So if you'd like to learn more about the convention, just visit allblacknationalconvention.com. You can get a pass. If you have a business, you can be a vendor and sell your stuff at the convention. If you want us to just promote your business on this platform, you can become a sponsor. So all that's at allblacknationalconvention.com. So anyway, take care, everybody. God bless you. Have a good night, and we will see you soon. Take care now. Peace.
Bye.